The best survival horror games are an anxious thrill, and that's exactly why we love them. There's something uniquely terrifying about being low on ammo, low on health, and still being hunted. Unlike standard horror games, survival horror adds that extra layer of pressure. You're not just facing terrifying enemies, you're also managing resources, making tough decisions, and trying to stay alive in hopeless situations. And it's not just physical threats you're dealing with. The best survival horror games throw in psychological twists that mess with your head just as much as your health bar. In this video, we're counting down 25 of the best survival horror games that truly test your skills, not just your nerves. S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2. Heart of Chernobyl is one of the most anticipated survival horror games in years, and for good reason. Set in the dangerous and mysterious Chernobyl exclusion zone, the game throws you into a massive open world filled with deadly anomalies, horrifying mutants, and ruthless factions. But it's not just about shooting your way through. It's about surviving in an unforgiving environment where every decision matters. Resources are scarce. Radiation is a constant threat. And sometimes, the most terrifying things aren't monsters. They're moments of silence when you realize you're truly alone. S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2 combines survival mechanics with psychological horror and atmospheric tension in a way that few games do. You'll need to manage your health, hunger, and stamina while navigating twisted landscapes where reality seems to bend and shift. With immersive storytelling, dynamic weather, a deep upgrade system, and brutal combat, this game demands both strategy and skill. You can't just rush through. The zone punishes carelessness. If you're looking for a survival horror experience that constantly tests your awareness, decision-making, and nerves, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2 earns its place on this list. Friday the 13th. The game drops you into one of the most iconic horror franchises ever and turns survival into a terrifying multiplayer experience. In this asymmetrical horror game, one player controls Jason Voorhees, while the rest take on the role of camp counselors just trying to survive the night. What makes this game intense isn't just Jason's presence, it's how vulnerable you feel. You're under-equipped, under pressure, and constantly hunted. Whether you're hiding in a cabin, trying to fix a car, or just running through the dark woods with a broken flashlight, the fear of being found is real. As a counselor, survival demands teamwork, strategy, and quick thinking. You can escape, call the police, or even try to fight back, but none of those are easy options. As Jason, it's about stalking, trapping, and eliminating everyone before they get away. With unpredictable matches, jump scares, and the constant tension of a killer who could be anywhere, Friday the 13th turns every game into a skill test under stress. It's not just about surviving Jason, it's about outsmarting him, and that's what lands at a spot on this list. Alone in the Dark is a survival horror classic that helped shape the genre, and the 2024 reboot brings it back with style, fear, and modern mechanics. Set in the eerie Derceto Manor, the game follows private investigator Edward Carnby and Emily Hartwood as they uncover dark secrets buried deep within the mansion's haunted halls. This version of Alone in the Dark mixes puzzle-solving, exploration, and third-person survival horror into a slow-burning psychological experience. The atmosphere is thick, the pacing is deliberate, and the game constantly keeps you on edge, not just with jump scares, but with the creeping sense that something is deeply wrong. Supplies are limited, enemies hit hard, and the game demands you think before every move. Whether you're searching for clues, unlocking new paths, or confronting grotesque creatures, Alone in the Dark rewards careful exploration and smart resource management. What sets it apart is the psychological element. The game constantly blurs the line between reality and madness. You're not just surviving monsters, you're surviving your own mind. It's a love letter to classic survival horror, updated for a new generation, and it absolutely earns its spot on this list. Parasite Eve is a unique blend of survival horror and RPG mechanics that stands out as one of the most original horror games of its time. Released for the original PlayStation, it follows NYPD Officer Aya Brea as she faces off against a terrifying outbreak of spontaneous human combustion, caused by mitochondria evolving into a sentient force. What makes Parasite Eve so memorable is its balance of tension-filled horror and deep, tactical gameplay. It's not your typical survival horror. Instead of pure action or stealth, the game uses a real-time battle system with RPG-style mechanics. That means positioning, timing, and managing limited resources are all part of every fight. But the horror still hits hard. The mutated creatures you face are grotesque. The environments are haunting, and the story dives into unsettling science fiction that feels disturbingly possible. Between the atmospheric soundtrack and the slow unraveling of its biological nightmare, Parasite Eve keeps you constantly uneasy. It's a survival horror game that dares to be different and succeeds. Its mix of genres and unique combat make it a thinking player's horror experience, and a must-play for anyone who wants more than just jump scares. Visage is one of the most terrifying psychological horror games in recent memory. And it's not because of what you see, but what you feel. Inspired by the infamous canceled PT, Visage throws you into a slow, atmospheric descent into madness inside a haunted house where the past refuses to stay buried. You play as Dwayne, a man trapped in a house stained by tragedy, and your only goal is to survive. There are no weapons, no combat, just exploration, puzzle solving, and a creeping sense of dread. The game messes with your mind constantly, using hallucinations, sudden shifts in environment, and subtle audio cues to keep you disoriented. Sanity is a core mechanic. The longer you stay in the dark or witness supernatural events, the more unstable you become. You'll hear whispers, see shadows, and never be sure what's real. Managing your limited light sources becomes a matter of survival. Visage isn't about running from monsters. It's about enduring psychological torment in a house that knows your fears. Every creaking door and flickering light is a threat. This is survival horror at its most intimate, and it's a true test of your patience, awareness, and mental endurance. Dying Light 2 takes the foundation of open-world survival horror and elevates it with fast-paced parkour, brutal melee combat, and a dynamic day-night cycle that changes everything. Set in a post-apocalyptic city overrun by the infected, you play as Aiden Caldwell, a skilled survivor navigating a crumbling society while searching for answers about his past. By day, the city is dangerous. By night, it's a nightmare. The infected become faster, more aggressive, and far more terrifying once the sun goes down, forcing you to weigh every decision carefully. Do you scavenge for loot in the safety of daylight, or risk the horrors of night for bigger rewards? The survival element goes beyond combat. You'll manage stamina, health, immunity levels, and supplies while making story choices that actually shape the world around you. Combat is skill-based and unforgiving, especially when you're surrounded or unprepared. What truly makes Dying Light 2 stand out is how it rewards agility and smart thinking. Climbing, dodging, and escaping are often more important than fighting. And knowing when to run is just as critical as knowing when to fight. It's a thrilling, skill-driven experience that mixes horror with freedom and consequence. Condemned. Criminal Origins is one of the most underrated survival horror games of its time, and it delivers a raw, unsettling experience that feels as brutal as it is atmospheric. You play as Ethan Thomas, an FBI agent tracking down a serial killer through a decaying city full of deranged criminals and disturbing secrets. What sets Condemned apart is its focus on melee combat and psychological horror. Guns are rare, ammo is scarce, and most of your encounters happen up close and personal, with pipes, planks, and whatever else you can find. Every fight feels desperate, and the enemy AI is surprisingly smart, often ambushing you or retreating when they're outmatched. The game constantly keeps you on edge with eerie sound design, flickering lights, and a story that slowly blurs the line between reality and madness. Investigations play a big role too, using forensic tools to piece together clues in dark, blood-soaked crime scenes. Condemned isn't about jump scares or monsters. It's about tension, violence, and the fear of losing control. It's gritty, grounded, and deeply disturbing in all the right ways. If you're looking for a survival horror game that hits hard and sticks with you, this one deserves your attention. Look Outside is a lesser-known indie survival horror game, but don't let that fool you. This one gets under your skin fast. Set in a small, isolated town blanketed in silence and dread, the game focuses on pure psychological horror, minimal resources, and a constant feeling of being watched. You're alone, or at least that's what you're told. The game gives little direction, forcing you to explore, piece things together, and survive long enough to understand what's really happening. There's no hand-holding, just a flashlight, a creeping sense of dread, and an atmosphere thick with paranoia. Unlike many horror games that rely on jump scares, Look Outside plays a slow game. Shadows shift when you're not looking. Footsteps echo in empty streets. The horror builds from tension and isolation, not monsters. Though when they do appear, it's never expected and never easy to survive. The minimalist design works in its favor, letting your imagination do half the work. Limited resources, disturbing visuals, and unpredictable events make every moment feel fragile and dangerous. If you like your horror quiet, tense, and deeply psychological, Look Outside is a hidden gem that will seriously test your nerves and your instincts. The Last of Us Part 2 isn't just an emotional story. It's a brutal survival horror experience that constantly tests your skill, awareness, and patience. Set in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by the infected and torn apart by violent factions, every encounter feels raw and unforgiving. You play primarily as Ellie, navigating a ruined America filled with danger at every turn. Stealth is key, but you're often forced into combat where quick thinking and limited resources make all the difference. Ammo is scarce, enemies are smart, and the infected, they don't give second chances. What truly makes this game stand out is its attention to realism. You'll craft supplies on the fly, search every drawer for a single bullet, and learn the importance of staying quiet. One mistake can mean death, especially on higher difficulties. But it's not just about survival. The Last of Us Part 2 explores psychological trauma, revenge, and moral gray areas, all while keeping you constantly on edge with tense gameplay and unforgettable encounters. It's a masterclass in survival horror design, blending story and challenge in a way that few games can. If you think it's just a drama, play it again and try to survive.
I found her!
Alan Wake 2 is a chilling blend of psychological horror, survival mechanics, and mind-bending storytelling that builds on the cult legacy of the original. This time, the stakes are higher, the shadows are darker, and the horror is more personal than ever before. You alternate between two characters, Alan Wake, trapped in a twisted dimension known as the Dark Place, and Saga Anderson, an FBI agent investigating a series of ritualistic murders. Each perspective offers different gameplay styles and environments, but both are united by one thing: constant, creeping dread. Combat is methodical and terrifying. Light is your greatest weapon, and managing batteries, ammo, and resources becomes critical in surviving shadowy creatures that seem to come from nowhere. You're never fully safe, and the game thrives on creating tension in both combat and exploration. But Alan Wake 2 doesn't just want to scare you. It wants to make you question what's real. The narrative constantly shifts, the environments are unpredictable, and the psychological pressure never lets up. With its haunting atmosphere, surreal storytelling, and brutally unforgiving encounters, Alan Wake 2 demands focus, sharp instincts, and a strong grip on reality, if you can hold on to it. Until Dawn takes a cinematic approach to survival horror, where every decision you make can mean life or death for its cast of characters. Set in an isolated mountain lodge, the game follows a group of friends who return to the site of a past tragedy, only to find themselves stalked by something far more terrifying than bad memories. You don't fight in the traditional sense. Instead, until Dawn tests your reflexes, instincts, and decision-making under pressure. Quick time events, timed choices, and exploration all shape the story in real time, and every action, even the smallest, can dramatically alter who lives and who dies. What sets this game apart is its use of the butterfly effect. Choices ripple outward, sometimes in ways you don't expect until hours later. You're constantly second-guessing your actions, especially when you realize that saving one person might doom another. The horror comes from both the story and the experience of making terrifying decisions under pressure. With a mix of slasher film tension, psychological mind games, and branching paths, Until Dawn isn't just about surviving monsters. It's about surviving your own choices. One wrong move, and someone won't make it to morning. Dead by Daylight flips the survival horror formula into a tense, heart-pounding multiplayer experience where the hunter and the hunted are both real players. First survivors must escape a nightmarish arena by repairing generators and avoiding a relentless killer, who's controlled by another player with one goal: to sacrifice them all. Every match is a high-stress test of awareness, stealth, and teamwork. Survivors have no weapons, only their wits, quick thinking, and coordination. Mistakes are costly. Miss a skill check, make noise, or run in the wrong direction, and you'll find yourself in the killer's grip. What keeps Dead by Daylight constantly fresh is its huge roster of killers, each with unique powers, from horror icons like Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger to original monsters with terrifying abilities. Survivors also have distinct perks that can turn the tide, but every choice matters. The game thrives on tension. You'll spend more time hiding, watching, and listening than fighting, and that's what makes every escape feel like a hard-earned victory. Whether you're the prey or the predator, Dead by Daylight pushes your survival instincts to the limit, and every match is a brutal test of skill and nerves. Alien. Isolation is survival horror at its most intense. A slow-burning, nerve-wracking experience where the threat is smarter, faster, and always one step behind you. Set 15 years after the original Alien film, you play as Amanda Ripley, searching for answers aboard a derelict space station haunted by a lone, deadly xenomorph. This isn't an action game. You can't kill the alien. You can't outrun it. All you can do is hide, distract, and pray it doesn't hear you breathe. The AI is unpredictable, making every encounter feel like a genuine hunt. It learns from your actions, adapts to your tricks, and punishes careless mistakes without mercy. Resources are scarce. Every crafting material, every bullet, every battery counts. Even saving your game isn't safe. The alien can appear while you're at the save station, adding constant pressure to even the most basic tasks. The game's atmosphere is masterful, with flickering lights, haunting sound design, and environments pulled straight from the original film's gritty sci-fi horror. It's not just scary, it's oppressive in the best way. Alien Isolation doesn't just test your skills, it tests your patience, your nerves, and your will to survive. The Evil Within 2 takes everything that made the original memorable and sharpens it into a smarter, scarier, and more refined survival horror experience. You step back into the shoes of Sebastian Castellanos, a broken man pulled into a twisted, collapsing world known as STEM, searching for his missing daughter and his own redemption. This time, the game opens up with semi-open world sections, giving you freedom to explore creepy neighborhoods, abandoned buildings, and blood-soaked streets. But freedom comes at a price. The more you explore, the more you uncover, and the more danger you invite. Resources are limited, enemies are relentless, and the environments are crawling with horrifying creatures that feel straight out of a nightmare. You're constantly forced to choose between sneaking through the shadows or facing threats head-on with whatever ammo or traps you can find. What makes The Evil Within 2 stand out is its psychological layer. The world twists with your fears, and the game constantly messes with your perception of reality. Boss fights are brutal, stealth is tense, and the atmosphere never lets up. It's a brutal, emotional journey that blends action and horror beautifully, and a true test of survival instincts and nerves. Outlast is pure, unfiltered terror, a survival horror game that rips away your weapons, your power, and your sense of safety. You play as investigative journalist Miles Upshur, lured to the Mount Massive Asylum by a cryptic tip, only to find himself trapped in a nightmare of madness, violence, and something far more sinister. The game's genius lies in its simplicity. You can't fight. You can only run, hide, or die. With nothing but a camcorder equipped with night vision, you explore pitch-black hallways, blood-stained rooms, and eerie corridors while being stalked by deranged patients and unspeakable horrors. Night vision is your lifeline, but it burns through batteries, and batteries are scarce. This constant tension between needing to see and needing to survive creates a level of fear that few games can match. The asylum itself is a terrifying character, creaking and groaning with every step. Add in disturbing audio, sudden chases, and grotesque imagery, and you get a relentless experience that never lets you breathe. Outlast isn't just a game, it's a full-on panic attack in digital form. If you think you're good at keeping calm under pressure, this one will break you and make you come back for more. Haunting Ground is one of the most underrated survival horror gems from the PlayStation 2 era, a spiritual cousin to Clock Tower that delivers fear through helplessness, vulnerability, and psychological pressure. You play as Fiona Belly, a young woman who wakes up in a mysterious castle after a car accident, only to find herself hunted by twisted inhabitants who want far more than just her life. Fiona isn't a fighter. There are no guns, no combat combos. Your only defenses are your wits, hiding spots, and your loyal canine companion, Huey. He can be commanded to attack enemies, solve puzzles, or even comfort Fiona when she's overwhelmed, which is often. Panic is a core mechanic. When Fiona is frightened, she becomes harder to control, stumbling, panicking, and even collapsing. This mechanic amplifies the tension, especially during chase sequences where one wrong move can mean a brutal game over. The gothic atmosphere, eerie sound design, and disturbing enemies make Haunting Ground a slow-burn horror experience that sticks with you long after it ends. It's not just about surviving. It's about enduring fear and isolation while desperately searching for a way out. If you missed this one, it's time to revisit this cult classic. Amnesia. The Dark Descent is the game that redefined modern survival horror by taking away the one thing players often rely on, control. You play as Daniel, a man who wakes up in a crumbling Prussian castle with no memory of how he got there, and a single instruction: kill Alexander. From the start, Amnesia immerses you in a suffocating world of dread and darkness. There's no combat, no weapons, just shadows, puzzles, and your sanity, which is always slipping away. Stay in the dark too long or witness something horrifying, and Daniel's mental state begins to break down. The screen distorts, your vision blurs, and your sense of safety vanishes. What makes Amnesia so terrifying isn't jump scares. It's the constant fear of the unknown. You hear things you can't see. You run from things you can't fight. And you question everything around you, including yourself. The game's use of lighting, sound design, and environmental storytelling creates a deeply immersive horror experience that punishes recklessness and rewards calm, strategic thinking. Amnesia, The Dark Descent, doesn't just test your survival skills, it tests your mind. And if you're not careful, you'll lose both in the dark. Dead Space is a survival horror masterpiece that drops you into the cold, claustrophobic corridors of the USG Ishimura, a mining ship overrun by terrifying alien monstrosities known as necromorphs. You play as Isaac Clarke, an engineer sent to fix the ship, but quickly finds himself fighting to survive against unimaginable horrors. What sets Dead Space apart is its signature mechanic: strategic dismemberment. Instead of traditional headshots, you're forced to think tactically, severing limbs to stop enemies in their tracks. It's brutal, precise, and incredibly satisfying when you're not panicking. Every corner of the ship feels hostile. The atmosphere is thick with dread. Flickering lights, distant screeches, and sudden blackouts keep you on edge. The game's immersive HUD, projected directly from Isaac's suit, pulls you deeper into the experience by removing typical game interfaces. There's no pause from the terror. Resources are limited, upgrades are scarce, and enemies become deadlier the deeper you go. Each encounter is a test of ammo management, timing, and nerves. With its haunting sound design, unforgettable enemy design, and relentless tension, Dead Space doesn't just challenge your aim, it challenges your ability to stay calm in the face of pure sci-fi horror. Resident Evil 7. Biohazard reinvented the franchise by bringing it back to its survival horror roots, but with a fresh, terrifying twist: first-person perspective. Gone are the action-heavy shootouts of previous entries. Instead, you step into the shoes of Ethan Winters, a regular man searching for his missing wife in a decaying Louisiana plantation. What he finds is the Baker family, and they're anything but normal. From the moment you enter the Baker house, Resident Evil 7 grabs you by the throat and never lets go. Limited ammo, tense exploration, and gruesome enemies create a suffocating atmosphere where danger feels inescapable. You're not a soldier or a cop. You're just a guy trying to survive in the face of unimaginable horror. The first-person view makes every encounter feel personal and immediate. You'll creep through pitch-black hallways, solve classic RE-style puzzles, and pray your last bullet is enough to survive what's waiting around the next corner. The game also balances horror with story, slowly unraveling the mystery behind the Bakers and the terrifying molded creatures. It's a gritty, grounded return to form, and a true test of nerves and survival instincts. Resident Evil 7 isn't just scary. It's personal, and it's unforgettable. SOMA is a survival horror game that trades traditional jump scares for something far more disturbing: existential dread. Developed by Frictional Games, the minds behind Amnesia, SOMA drops you into an underwater research facility where something has gone horribly wrong. But it's not just the monsters that will haunt you. You play as Simon, a man who wakes up in the Pathos 2 station with no idea how he got there or what's happening. As you explore the facility, you're forced to confront questions about identity, consciousness, and what it truly means to be human, all while avoiding twisted, malformed creatures lurking in the dark. What sets SOMA apart is how it uses horror to serve its story. The game strips away most traditional combat, focusing instead on stealth, exploration, and puzzle solving. It doesn't rely on cheap scares. It slowly unravels a nightmare rooted in philosophy and technology, and it sticks with you long after the credits roll. The atmosphere is suffocating, the sound design is eerie, and the narrative is genuinely thought-provoking. Every decision you make feels heavy, and survival means more than just staying alive. It means holding on to your sense of self. SOMA is intelligent horror at its finest. System Shock 2 is a legendary survival horror RPG that blends psychological terror, sci-fi storytelling, and punishing gameplay into a genre-defining experience. Released in 1999, it was ahead of its time, and even today it remains one of the most unsettling and influential horror games ever made. You awaken aboard the Starship Von Braun, a vessel drifting through space after a failed faster-than-light experiment. The crew, either dead or transformed into terrifying abominations. As you explore, scavenge, and survive, you quickly learn you're not alone, and the rogue AI Shodan is watching. Combat is tense and strategic. You'll constantly run low on ammo, health, and cybernetic energy. Enemies are brutal and unforgiving. Resource management, hacking, and RPG progression systems all factor into your survival, but the pressure never eases. What truly makes System Shock 2 terrifying is its atmosphere. The audio logs, the ambient whispers, the flickering lights. Everything works to create a sense of dread. And Shodan? She's not just a villain. She's one of gaming's most iconic nightmares. This is survival horror for thinkers, where paranoia, isolation, and fear of the unknown are constant companions. If you want to be tested both mentally and emotionally, System Shock 2 delivers. Eternal Darkness. Sanity's Requiem is a psychological survival horror game unlike any other, not just for what it does to its characters, but for what it does to you. Released for the Nintendo GameCube in 2002, it was ahead of its time in both narrative structure and gameplay mechanics. You play as Alexandra Roivas, investigating the mysterious death of her grandfather in a Rhode Island mansion. But the story quickly spirals into a grand cosmic horror tale that spans centuries and multiple characters, each with their own terrifying journey. From ancient Roman soldiers to World War I reporters, every chapter deepens the sense of dread. The game's defining feature is its sanity meter. As characters witness disturbing events or suffer trauma, their sanity drops, and that's when things get brilliantly twisted. The game starts breaking the fourth wall. TV volume appears to lower, save files delete themselves, walls bleed, and the game pretends to crash. These sanity effects create a deep sense of paranoia and helplessness you can't prepare for. With its Lovecraftian tone, disturbing atmosphere, and innovative mechanics, Eternal Darkness isn't just about surviving monsters, it's about surviving your own mind. Resident Evil Village masterfully blends classic survival horror with modern action, delivering a haunting fairy tale soaked in blood and mystery. Set shortly after the events of Resident Evil 7, you once again play as Ethan Winters, this time searching for his kidnapped daughter in a secluded European village filled with twisted horrors. The game throws you into a terrifying world that shifts constantly. One moment you're fighting werewolf-like creatures in fog-drenched woods. The next you're trapped in a dollmaker's house with no weapons, facing psychological horror that rivals the best in the genre. Each of the village's 4 lords offers a different flavor of fear, from the grotesque to the surreal. What makes Village stand out is its balance. There's tense exploration, limited resources, and nerve-wracking encounters, but also more freedom to fight back than in RE7. Ammo is scarce, but powerful. Every encounter feels meaningful, and every bullet counts. Visually stunning and deeply atmospheric, Resident Evil Village keeps you on edge with pacing that's constantly shifting between suspense, action, and outright terror. It's both a love letter to the series and a bold step forward.
You gotta stop it, Soma.
Silent Hill 2 isn't just one of the best survival horror games ever made. It's one of the most emotionally haunting experiences in all of gaming. This psychological masterpiece ditches cheap scares for something far more disturbing, a deep exploration of guilt, grief, and punishment. You play as James Sunderland, who receives a letter from his deceased wife, calling him to the fog-drenched town of Silent Hill. What follows is a descent into a world shaped by James's own mind, where every monster, every eerie location, and every unsettling encounter is a reflection of his inner torment. Combat exists, but it's clunky by design. You're not a soldier. You're a broken man stumbling through nightmares with limited resources, poor aim, and no real understanding of what's happening. That helplessness adds to the fear. The game's atmosphere is oppressive and unforgettable. The fog, the static from your radio, the soundtrack, eerie and melancholic. And, of course, Pyramid Head, a manifestation of punishment that will forever haunt survival horror history. Silent Hill 2 doesn't just test your survival skills. It tests your emotional limits. It's not about defeating monsters. It's about facing what you've buried deep inside. At number 1, we have Resident Evil 2 Remake, a perfect blend of nostalgia and modern survival horror excellence. Capcom didn't just remake a classic. They reimagined it with stunning visuals, atmospheric tension, and gameplay that feels both faithful and fresh. You choose between Leon S. Kennedy, a rookie cop on his first day, or Claire Redfield, searching for her missing brother. Both are trapped in Raccoon City during a viral outbreak that turns the population into the undead. The storylines overlap, offering different perspectives, unique encounters, and plenty of replay value. What makes Resident Evil 2 Remake truly shine is its survival design. Every bullet matters. Every hallway feels like a trap. Zombies are tougher than ever, refusing to stay down. And then there's Mr. X, a relentless, trench coat-wearing tyrant who hunts you through the RPD building, adding constant pressure. The over-the-shoulder perspective modernizes the gameplay while maintaining the fear and resource management that define the original. Puzzles, exploration, tight level design, and incredible sound design all work together to create one of the most immersive horror experiences in years. This isn't just a great remake, it's survival horror perfected. Resident Evil 2 Remake earns its spot at the top. And there you have it, 25 survival horror games that do more than just scare you. These titles challenge your instincts, your patience, and your ability to survive when the odds are stacked against you. Whether it's limited ammo, overwhelming enemies, or a psychological breakdown waiting to happen, these games know how to keep you on edge from start to finish. If you played any of these, let us know which one pushed you the hardest, or if we missed a favorite that deserved a spot on the list. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more gaming content, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and remember, in survival horror, panic is your worst enemy.